Week 2 running back rankings. We've made it this far. Let's keep it going. The position that happened with no injuries last week, Hayden, we made it through basically unscathed. Let's keep that going for 16 more weeks. All right, let's kick things off with Christian McCaffrey as your running back one. The man that had 30 expected fantasy points last week. Hayden, what are we expecting this week with Kyle Shanahan just getting to the microphone and saying Brock Purdy is a, quote, long shot to play this week against the New Orleans Saints with turf toe?
It's just him and Ricky Pearsall, and I would say that Mac Jones passes the backup quarterback test, and here's the two things he has to do this week. He has to hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, which every backup quarterback is capable of doing that. He has to throw the ball about 6 yards to Christian McCaffrey. That will be the entire offense. How effective will it be? I'm not sure, but I know McCaffrey's going to walk out of there with 25 plus touches in this one, as long as he can stay healthy. He said that his calf injury last week was, quote, nothing. It sounds like it might have even just been like calf cramps. So he's going to miss some time with practice. It's just like veteran stays off. That's what the 49ers always do, but he's too big to fail for now. As long as he's healthy, he will probably be my RB1.
Going back and watching the Saints and Cardinals game last week, thought the Saints defense actually performed really well. And for this running game last week for the 49ers, Trent Williams got kind of rolled up on about halfway through the game, and you could tell that really hobbled him. We know Dominic Pooty is coming back from an injury, and that led to Christian McCaffrey being hit behind or at the line of scrimmage on 50% of his runs. So give him a bit more space, and even better things can happen for a guy that we loved in drafts this summer, and we're hoping that we get 17 games out of him this season. Okay, that brings us, speaking of run blocking, to Derrick Henry as your running back 2 this week. This is against the Cleveland Browns. Hayden, if you didn't fumble, it would have truly been a perfect day for the big dog. Yeah,
with the entire offense. I mean, they were sensational. In 12 wins last year, he averaged 131 rushing yards. They are 12-point home favorites in this one, projected for the most points on the week. The Ravens are as a team. And I would say just like a little bit of a revenge spot for Derrick Henry. I'm sure he's not feeling great after last week, and I'm sure they're just going to give him the ball a ton. And it's just what happens. You have a Hall of Fame running back playing next to the biggest lane opening quarterback in NFL history. He's just going to dunk on models repeatedly. He's going to get the ball a million times, and good luck to the people that faded him is as long as he stays healthy.
Unreal blocking up front by this Ravens unit last week, and that was even without Patrick Ricard at fullback. I mean, Terrell Bernard, who is one of the Bills linebackers, was an absolute hell. I mean, constantly they were getting Derrick Henry one-on-one with a defensive back because also Taylor Rapp was taking himself out of place. 3.4 yards before contact per attempt was created last week for Hendo. Second best in the NFL. Second best last week for Derrick Henry. He also had 5 runs of 10 or more yards, the most in week 1. And on those runs of 10 plus yards, it was breakaway stuff. 153 yards in those games, on those weeks, on those carries. Pretty cool. Okay. Jonathan Taylor is next as your running back 3 against the Denver Broncos. Talk to me.
He was running back 3 in expected points last week, which is like targets and carries and how close you are to the end zone and a lot of other variables, but just a good metric to kind of feel like where we're going to be at with players, especially early on in the season when variance is kind of crazy. Aside from the RB3 overall in usage, he played 100% of the first 43 snaps on offense, 100%. You don't see that, period. So, I mean, talk about too big to fail. Like, that's what Jonathan Taylor is. He should be on pace for 100 yards per game like he was last year in the rushing department. And I think there's a little bit more live to get a couple receptions this year with Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson. We know he's good. The offensive line, I thought, would look pretty dang good despite having a new center and new right guard. So if that like question that I had in this offseason kind of gets solved initially, and we don't have nearly as much competition for goal line carries with Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson, like, I don't know, man. He was like a top 5 guy by the end of last year, and like it feels even better right now.
You're ahead of the public at this moment. You know, I like to compare your rankings to consensus rankings out there. We get those from Fantasy Pros. They aggregate about 50 or 60 rankings lists out there. They have him as running back 13 in consensus rankings. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me either. I know that they were winning by so much that DJ Giddens got a number of carries in the second half of last week. It's like you're checking your notes to see if you're seeing something that you're missing.
100% snaps
against the public.
100% snaps, right? I mean, look, this is a bad matchup. You're playing the Denver Broncos, but they're still projected for over 20 points in this game. And you can't really pass against the Broncos because they have so many good defenders and edge rushers that I think they're just going to probably play a little bit more balanced here. But like 100% of the snaps, and he's good at football. Like RB13?
Yeah. Also caught some passes, if I remember correctly. Okay, your running back 4 is Jahmyr Gibbs, who was totally bottled up last week. He gets the Chicago Bears here in week 2. Just to talk about being bottled up, rushed 9 times for 19 yards, and that even included a 14-yard run part of those 19 yards. And then the 31 yards on his receptions were the fewest in league history for a player with double-digit catches.
Yeah. The good news is they're not facing the Packers, who I'm terrified of facing now. And the Lions are right back to 3rd in projected points this week at 26.5. His last couple of games against the Chicago Bears, 154 and 104 total yards. I'm not expecting the same efficiency that we've had in this offense before. Like last week, you had the 3rd lowest yards before contact. That's, I think, a coaching staff and interior offensive line stat. Even Penny Sewell was getting kind of smoked by Micah Parsons and some others. So I'm not expecting the same old thing, but the team total is at least a little bit closer to where it was last season when he was like an elite RB1. So I'm expecting the things look like a little bit better this week. And if it doesn't this week, then I think we need to have some serious conversations.
Right. If it doesn't happen for Johnny Morton this week, maybe one of the levers that he pulls is let's just get Jahmyr Gibbs the football a bit more often. And I think that could be really good things happening for him. And like you said, they were projected for 22 points last week. This week it's at 26.25. So a nice bump. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs, speaking of the Green Bay Packers, is your running back 5. And this is versus the Washington Commanders.
Commanders played really well last week. But last season, they weren't nearly as good against the rush. The Packers, meanwhile, 5th in projected points at 26. And from week 7 on, once Jordan Love came back from those injuries last season, he was the RB4. This past week, he scored his 9th straight game with the touchdown, and he was the RB12 in usage. Man, like it just feels like a really good spot. So like he doesn't catch as many passes. He's probably not going to have as many 40-yard touchdowns as other running backs around him, but like the floor is so high, and I think that the ceiling is a little bit underrated because this Packers team looks like dominant right now. Yeah,
he's at 93 yards total in the pick'em lobby at this moment. If you all want to go play, use promo code The Show. Owned 87% of the backfield touches last week, running back 6 across the league. We know this Commanders defense actually did a great job, but it was against the Giants, let's say patchwork offensive line, especially left tackle. I mean, 30 yards on 15 carries, but last season they were one of the worst run defenses in the league. So I don't know if that was totally fixed this offseason and probably was more matchup dependent for them in week 1. Because the wide receiver rankings video is on Fridays, and we know a lot of you are setting your lineups ahead of Thursday, we do want to throw in some wide receiver, quarterback, tight end conversation of the necessary players that are going to be here on Thursday Night Football. So again, this week, that is Packers, that is Commanders. Give us a couple thoughts on, the Matthew Goldens of the world, the Deebo Samuels of the world, so on and so forth.
I have Deebo Samuel ranked ahead of Terry McLaurin. I got Deebo right now. It's like the wide receiver 26, and then Terry like as probably still a start, but he's going to be way more volatile this year. Like he ran really hot in touchdowns last year, and now there's more competition. Deebo looked really good. We talked about it on Stats versus Film. So it wasn't just the end around where he looked awesome. Like the in cuts that he had, there was like 4 or 5 of them that were targeted. So this thing's headed towards Deebo Samuel, who is the wide receiver 13 in usage. So I think both of them are starts. I feel better about Deebo Samuel for right now, but not ruling out a long touchdown. The problem is that Packers defense looks so good, and Connerly, first round right tackle, is going to be facing Micah Parsons here. Like that's tough matchup on that side of the ball. And then for the Packers wide receivers, it's like they're in too much of a rotation. You can't start any of these guys. Just to go over it, Romeo Dobbs, 18 of 24 routes, Matthew Golden, 14 of 24, and then Jaden Reed, 12 of 24. So like these guys,
kind of amazing. We only got 24 routes from this group last week.
Definitely so. But that could also be something that happens with the Packers, if their defense lives up to the hype and they're a downfield offense through the air, and then they want to run the ball a lot. So this probably shouldn't be one of those games though. Like this could be a high scoring game. Like both these offenses look really good.
I don't want to be this simple with it, but I want to wait until Matthew Golden plays on 75% of routes before putting him into a flex spot in my starting lineup. That could happen as soon as this week. It really could, especially if, they're forced to pass more often and he gets another, week of practice in. Yeah. I mean, the total in this game is at 45.5 and the Packers are, favored by 3.5 points here. And just at tight ends, Tucker Kraft is an auto start for you. And then Zach Ertz is definitely on the fringes. More likely we would start him in a game last week, as we talked about in our Sunday morning start sits, because they were projected for more points than the 22.5 total. And so if you're on the fringes about tight ends, just go with the one on the team that's projected to score more points because they're more likely to score a touchdown in those games. Bijan Robinson is your running back 6. This is at the Minnesota Vikings. This is a defensive stat in that this Vikings defense is notoriously difficult and has been for multiple seasons to run against.
I mean, this is as low as I can possibly rank Bijan Robinson. This is like a huge respect to the Vikings. Right now, the Falcons are 23rd in projected points. So like, for example, like Josh Jacobs is much higher. Derrick Henry is much higher. Jahmyr Gibbs, much higher. And yeah, he lost a couple touches to Tyler Algier on the ground. I'm not like that fearful of that because they were like just obviously throwing him the ball a ton to massive success. It really just comes down to the Vikings. They've allowed the lowest running back success rate in week 1. And last year they were first in EPA per carry allowed. And then this offseason they signed Jonathan Allen. So I would say like maybe the most difficult running back matchup in the NFL is like them and the Eagles and the Chiefs are kind of all right there for different reasons. But yeah, it's really hard to like throw the ball against Minnesota the way that they kind of just are so fearful at the line of scrimmage too. So just a really bad matchup and he's still good.
Even added Javon Hargrave on top of that. So this is what they used the Sam Darnold money on, was to run the ball on offense and to stop the run on defense. Even better. Saquon Barkley, speaking of as low as you can rank them, here is your running back 7. And this is one of the other teams that you mentioned at the Kansas City Chiefs. I will add, though, he is at 106 total yards in the pick'em lobby, so they aren't scared to compete.
No, definitely not. The Eagles are 10th in projected points this week at 24, which is like probably as low as they're going to be. The Chiefs have just been the best fantasy defense against running backs. That's what they were in 2024. They allowed the second lowest running back rushing success rate in week 1. Chris Jones looked fantastic. The interior of the offensive line for the Eagles is good, but not quite as dominant as it was maybe last year. And then the Super Bowl win, just obviously a sample size of 1. Saquon Barkley still got home 97 yards, but that was on 32 opportunities. So like the efficiency was way down. Just like the Chiefs, Spagnuolo, they're like very good game planners here. They're used to seeing Saquon Barkley. They just had like 2 weeks to prepare for them. So I think they have a decent chance here at kind of slowing him down a little bit. I mean, even when they slow him down, it's for 97 yards.
To round up the top 8, Chase Brown against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Chase Brown also dealt with some, I would say, offensive line issues this past week. He went from, 93% snaps down to about 75% snaps. 75 is still incredible, and he definitely belongs in this top 8 workload.
Yep, he was the RB5 in expected half PPR points, saw a bunch of opportunities even on the first drive. That was like a very weird game plan for the Bengals against one of the most respectable defenses in with the Browns there. So not expecting the same old thing. This matchup is much easier. Jaguars were second most fantasy points to running backs last year. Chuba Hubbard was the RB7 overall this last week, and that was in bad game script too. And the Bengals, as usual, are 4th in projected points. So like, I'm not sure if the efficiency is going to be as good as some of the other guys in this tier, but like RB5 usage, explosive offense, he can just roll right into the end zone in the flats, no problem.
Just like many of you, I am a member at a gym. I typically side with HIT classes. There's child watch involved. So oftentimes in the 9:30 a.m. class, lots of 30, 40-ish year old women are involved, and they run absolute laps around me. And when I'm done, the next day and the next day, I'm incredibly sore. So what I need to look into is Fitbod, because Fitbod creates a personalized workout routine based on our goals, my goals, fitness level, and available equipment. Workouts actually adapt to your growth, so each workout is challenging enough to push you to make progress. I mentioned being sore. Well, Fitbod also tracks your muscles recovery, so you can avoid burnouts and keep your momentum going. Level up your workout by joining Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app for free for 7 days at fitbod.me/the show. That's FITBOD.me/the show. Let's go to the next tier because these backs are still ones that I definitely want to start. And that brings us to James Conner at running back 9 against the Carolina Panthers. The pick'em lobby, I think, is a bit low, and we'll talk about that in a moment. At just 77 total yards here.
Whoa. Yeah. I'll take the higher on that one. I mean, I have a bunch of notes for this because I rank them probably pretty aggressively. The Cardinals are 6 in projected points. They're 6.5-point home favorites against the Panthers. In 7 wins last year, James Conner averaged 116 total yards on 21 opportunities per game. In the losses, that was like at 15 opportunities per game. So it's a big deal. In the 12 wins under Jonathan Gannon, James Conner is averaging 17.5 half PPR points per game. He lost some snaps to Trey Benson in the passing game, but that's kind of always how it's been. And he still had 3 screens and the goal line roll, including combining those for a score. And then the Panthers, I mean, my God, the most fantasy points allowed to running backs last year, not even close. Then this last week, Travis Etienne, the second best rushing game of his career. Carolina even faced 10 carries with 6 or fewer defenders in the box, which is the third most of week 1 too. So it's like they're like purposely like kind of allowing this. They don't have the linebackers to make plays. This is a full-blown eruption spot. Like, this is why I have the matchup charts out there with the EPA allowed. The Cardinals can run it, the Panthers can't stop it, and James Conner's going to eat.
Public agrees with you. They also rank him as running back 9 this week. So you are in sync. You can't get away with this one.
Well, let's see if I can move him up a spot or two.
I think Travis Etienne was 3rd or 4th in the league in week 1 in terms of yards before contact per attempt. And I don't see that changing at all for this Panthers defense against the Arizona Cardinals. Look, if they're going to win, if they're going to be good, James Conner is going to continue to be the drumbeat of this team. And yeah, the Saints defense was a much more difficult matchup than this Panthers one, who are also without Turk Wharton in this game defensively, one of their big signings in free agency. So I'm all aboard James Conner. Hayden already made a pick'em entry. I'm sure producer Weaves will put it there on the screen. James Conner is one part of this. His higher at 76.5 rushing plus receiving yards. I think even his rushing's only at like 59.5, something like that. So part of me wanted to take that, but those screens, those swing passes, this is the, easiest part of the game plan for them, and one that they should take advantage of, especially at home and as favorites.
Yep. RB1.
Kyren Williams is your running back 10. This is at the Tennessee Titans, who have some, really good defensive tackles and give some opposing offensive lines fits. But at the same time, we saw that RJ Harvey and even J.K. Dobbins had runs of 10 to 50 yards. And the Rams are favorites here. And in those spots, we like Kyren Williams to score a touchdown.
I like the framing of that as RJ Harvey and even J.K. Dobbins, not like J.K. Dobbins and even RJ Harvey. I see you working there.
One had the 50-yarder, one had the 13-yarder.
Right. Well, who knows? J.K. Dobbins still could have been running with that touchdown. Don't limit him.
It's true.
As for Kyren Williams, we have some offseason concerns from him because we never know if Blake Corum's going to get in there. Jarquez Hunter was with a healthy scratch, though. Blake Corum barely played. We're talking about 81% of the snaps. So, like, long-term concerns are long-term concerns. For week 2 rankings, they're not concerns. He played 81% of the freaking snaps. Matthew Stafford's back. We know that can act up at any point, but in week 1, it looked great. So in week 2, most likely scenario is he's going to be all right. So last week, he was the RB14 on RB9 usage. He looks like a RB1. He profiles as an RB1. The Rams are 11th in projected points this week against the Titans. Like you said, they had a couple of explosive plays allowed on the ground last week, and Kyren Williams got home even against the Houston Texans. So
right,
long-term concerns are long-term concerns. For week 2, he's ready to go.
Yeah, 5.5-point favorites on the road. The Rams are at this moment. Okay, I'm not going to say there's a teardrop here, but maybe a couple questions start popping up for the rest of these names as we get into them. And the next one being Devon Achane here as running back 11 against the New England Patriots. First of all, the Patriots did an excellent job, and I mean an excellent job against the Las Vegas Raiders offensive line last week. I want to bring that up because already in week 2, the Dolphins are going to have a new starting right guard and a new starting right tackle. Austin Jackson is unlikely to play here, and James Daniels left after 3 snaps in week 1 and has already been put on injured reserve. And Devon Achane's week would have been miserable last week on just 10 total touches if he didn't barrel through 4 or 5 defenders into the end zone on one of the final plays.
Everything about this is pathetic except Achane himself. And
yes,
really, he played 25 of the 28 snaps through the third quarter before it was like the game was completely a mess. And if you just want to take a little bit of a zoom out here, last year in 11 Tua games, he averaged 19.3 half PPR points on 6 receptions per game. Now, like, we'll see if they want to go back to that style of offense. They got Jonnu Smith out of there for a reason. Like, we'll see if Achane is going to catch as many passes this year. To me, like, if you get rid of the offensive line, like, and not that Austin Jackson, James Daniels are like that good, but if you want to just like say we're not trusting our offensive line, just like throw swing passes to Achane and see what happens. So we'll see. Like, I don't think it's going to be pretty. Like you said, the Patriots were fantastic against Ashton Jeanty. Their like front seven is really good. Their secondary has some issues right now as long as Christian Gonzalez is out. So we'll see about this one. I don't want to just say like the Dolphins are for sure toast no matter what. Like, I think that there's a 1 week sample size and there's a chance that they figure out some new ways to kind of get it done. I think that would be through Achane.
I will say our biggest concern about the Dolphins is that the offensive line additions don't improve the running game. But at the same time, we got him as running back 12 last year in points per game when the offensive line was totally miserable.
Terrible.
Because they did pivot back to, throwing the football and extension of the running game in swings and in screens. And I do wonder with the 2 down offensive linemen on the right side, if that's what they already go back to and immediately pivot to in week 2, which is probably not what Mike McDaniel had planned heading into the season.
No, you want to like run like a more straightforward offense, but if we're going to just do the PPR scam thing from week 2 on, I think that we would sign up for that with Achane right now.
And to be honest, we didn't get any information about like what Ollie Gordon's role could be here. I think they did get inside the 10-yard line one time, and it was Ollie Gordon who had like the lone carry in that area of the field. But at the same time, that was when the game was like totally out of whack. So again, that is information that we are still processing.
I'm going with 25 of 28 snaps through the third quarter for Achane, just being like, he's going to be the goal line back.
Okay, let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. So this is running back 12. He was obviously drafted much higher than this. He's now facing the Los Angeles Chargers, who did a great job defensively in the season opener. And this defense continues to add like more and more pieces in year 2 of this system. I will add that Ashton Jeanty is at 92 total yards in the pick'em lobby at this point. I don't think he really did anything wrong during his debut. And again, he had negative yards created before contact in week 1.
Yeah, it was just miserable, everything around him. Like, Geno Smith played well, but just the infrastructure around Ashton Jeanty works against him for fantasy purposes, except for that he was out there for 84% of the snaps. So we know he's a good player, but the 84% snaps only led to RB15 usage. The reason was, this was surprising to me, the Raiders were first in neutral pass rate in week 1. So that's just going to be the thing that we're going to be monitoring. Like, is this Chip Kelly offense, is it going to be as balanced as we maybe initially thought it was going to be? Or do they have issues at blocking at tight end and with their interior offensive linemen right now, where they just rather would throw the ball like crazy with Geno Smith? If that is the case, Ashton Jeanty can still pay off, but he's going to catch more passes than he's like kind of shown. I think he can do that. So I'm not like doing total panic here, but the offensive line is probably the worst aside from Achane across any of the fantasy RB1s right now. And if they're going to pass the ball a ton, I think that does kind of work against them just a little bit. And then on top of that, the Chargers are good on defense.
Chip Kelly's history in the NFL has been to run the football a ton. And Ashton Jeanty still got 19 or 20 total touches last week. Mm-hmm. So it's not like even if they do pass the football, they're still going to get him the football on top of that. Yes. So I am not panicking about a potential workload and this being like a truly pass first team, like the entire season in terms of top 3 or top 5. That is a potential here. But at the same time, I still think Ashton Jeanty is going to get at least 15 touches every single week and maybe up to 20 touches every single week.
For sure. He has to do that because the Raiders are going to be probably bottom 10 in projected points for a lot of the season. And I think there is, to me, there's a reason why that the Raiders would just pass the ball a ton. I think it's just their best path to winning football games. Like, they got Brock Bowers, Jacoby's good, and Geno Smith is a good quarterback. And if they're going to get Brock Bowers on the field a ton, like, he's pretty much a slot wide receiver. So I think that they're just going to have to pass the ball a ton to kind of work with their personnel. So we'll see. There's just only a 1 week sample size though.
Number 13 for you is James Cook at the New York Jets. We do want to point out that he was limited on Wednesday's practice with a hamstring issue. We'll monitor that moving forward. He had 18 touches in week 1 against the Ravens, including a 51-yard reception on 5 catches.
Yeah, it's just what he did all last year too, where he was like RB2 in usage and then would finish as an RB1. So that's what happens when you're on a team that's second in projected points. It's what happens when you're a good explosive player. Last year when the Bills played the Jets, they beat them 40-14. So I think this thing looks really good. Again, I don't know about the hamstring issue yet. So we'll have the Sunday show to update that. But make sure Ray Davis, if he is available, pick him up just in case.
James Cook still having the inside the 10-yard line work is magnificent for his fantasy value moving forward. And we're still waiting on, Ray Davis to have standalone value on a weekly basis. He's right now he's just a handcuff and nothing beyond that at this point. Bucky Irving is your running back 14. This is at the Houston Texans.
Yeah, he played 76% of the snaps in week 1, got a little bit of Rachaad White, a little bit of Sean Tucker, but it was like more or less what we saw from Bucky Irving this past season. This week's just a bigger challenge overall. The Buccaneers are 24th in projected points, right at 20 points. The Texans were 3rd best against fantasy running backs last year. I thought they did a pretty good job against the Rams offensive line in particular this past week. And right now, Graham Barton, their center, is playing left tackle with Tristan Wirfs sideline. And obviously Graham Barton could mostly handle it, but you have a pretty big test against the Texans here. So I say it's like a relatively like on paper, a down week for Bucky Irving, who's fantastic and was making plays in week 1 as he was the entire course of his rookie season.
It's just incredible what he does with the ball in his hands in terms of forcing defenders to miss tackles and all that type of stuff. And again, maybe their offense only improves 3 weeks from now when Tristan Wirfs comes back on top of it. So
probably
Bucky's the man. He is the man. And who looked like the man in week 1, Breece Hall is your running back 15 here. This is against the Buffalo Bills. 21% of his runs went for 10 or more yards. In 2024, that was only at 12.4%. So that showed up statistically, and Hayden, the eye test, it certainly looked like that as well.
I thought he looked like one of the best running backs in the NFL, which he has the potential to be when he's fully healthy. And we have not seen that in a couple of years, but that's what he was on pace to be before that knee injury. And it's what he looked like in week 1. So we'll see, man. He might be too good to not just use as a bell cow. And even if we do get some Braylon Allen stuff, this team's going to be so run heavy. I think they were second highest in neutral run rate last year. And Breece Hall is going to be ripping off explosive plays as long as the offensive line looks good, which obviously Elijah Vera Tucker going down was a problem. But Armand Membu handled TJ Watt, I think, very well. And I thought the offense in general just looked really coordinated. And then for this week, the Bills were obviously the caveat being they played the Ravens, but they were last in yards before contact per carry by a mile. And I think on paper, on film, I thought their defense looked really slow, and their defensive tackle, Ed Oliver, was making plays, but he's more like a gap shooter type. And that works when it works. And when it doesn't work, it's an explosive play. So I think it's a good matchup for Breece Hall right here. So it just kind of comes down to what exactly is the workload, and can Justin Fields not regress? But he looks pretty good yesterday.
Yeah. In the pick'em lobby, his rushing number is at 54.5 rushing yards. So wow. I have definitely taken that. By the way, Weaves will put this down I will in the description down below, and you all can play with me over on Underdog. Again, promo code the show, $5 gets $50 if it's your first time using the app. But the reason Hayden I didn't take total yards is for this stat, that he only ran 8 pass routes in week 1, which was 32% of the team's dropbacks. Compare that to 61% last year. They are mixing in Braylon Allen. They are mixing in Isaiah Davis, even if we both think that Breece Hall looked the best out of that. That can change at any point, but at the same time, the Jets just overall are going to drop back less this year than they have in previous years. So I just like Breece Hall's rushing more so than adding the receiving work on top of it right now.
I like your odds so far on the first 2 we got to.
We're doing it. Next, to close out this tier as running back 16, it is Omarion Hampton. It feels like ages since Omarion Hampton and the Chargers touched the field.
Seriously.
Now he doesn't have to face the Kansas City Chiefs run defense, and instead he gets the Las Vegas Raiders run defense, who actually did a pretty damn good job last week. He's at 74 total yards in the pick'em lobby right now.
Yeah, I still think the Raiders defense is one to target. No Christian Wilkins, Trevon Moehrig, Robert Spillane, Nate Hobbs, Divine Diablo. That's a lot of guys to lose in one off season. So we'll see. I think that this is going to be an opportunity for Omarion Hampton to spring those big plays. I think he's going to be a little bit boom busty as a rusher, but there's going to be some huge boom weeks. He played 80% of the snaps. That was only RB22 usage because the Chargers were like never like right at the goal line, but he will be the goal line back. And I think this Chargers team is going to get to the goal line a lot because this team looks really good. So they're 7th in projected points this week. It's a really good spot for Omarion Hampton. And even if he misses a couple holes here and there, I think over the course of the season, the explosive plays are going to make up for that. And I really just don't think that Najee Harris is going to play all that much. Maybe a little bit more this year, or this week versus last week. But man, like Harbaugh talks about Hampton like he's going to be the man. So, and they use a 1st-round pick on him.
I do believe though that Najee Harris will play a higher percentage of snaps this week than he did last week. But on top of that, I can't wait for Omarion Hampton to have a clear lane right in front of him and for him to hit the 3rd level at high gear at 6 foot, 220 pounds and just run away from people. Yep. I think it could look like Breece Hall, it's like that style, right? I think Breece Hall. I think he's very different than Breece.
Well, I think when you get to the open field, like that's a big man, like could absolutely run right by you. I think Breece Hall's a little bit shiftier than Hampton is, but like the explosive plays on the ground that we've seen from Breece Hall, I do think Omarion Hampton could do a version of that.
Chuba Hubbard is your running back 17. This is the opposite in that James Conner conversation that we had. This is in Arizona. He's at 80 total yards in the pick'em lobby right now. I will add that last season against these same Cardinals, albeit it was at home, he ran all over that defense. And that was a priority of this team in that game. And I think he won the game actually in overtime with a rushing score. So Chuba Hubbard, Panthers offense, get back on track maybe this week via Chuba.
Yeah, the Cardinals defense, they use like a 3rd safety. And when you're using a 3rd safety, that's at the expense of another, player in the box most of the time. So they had the 5th most carries against with light boxes this last week. And then last season, the Cardinals were 26 in rushing success rate allowed. So yeah, the Panthers aren't projected for a lot of points right now, but I think this is a good matchup for Chuba Hubbard on the ground. And even last week when Bryce was bad, the entire offense was bad, he was still top 10 and top 12 in usage and production, 16 carries. And then he still caught a bunch of passes in catch up mode. And like that was the fear when Rico Dowdle was getting in there. So I don't know, man, when the games are close, the Panthers want to give the ball Chuba as much as he can handle. And maybe this game gets a little bit closer.
I do believe Rico Dowdle will sub in most likely on 3rd downs, but they do the same exact things. And that was, before Rico Dowdle had an interception go straight through his hands. Tony Pollard, speaking of usage, is your running back 18. This is against the Los Angeles Rams defense. He handled 90% of the backfield touches last week, 3rd highest mark in the NFL. This is an easier matchup, albeit still a very difficult one, though. In the Rams.
Yeah, for sure. I really have like nothing more to say about this. Like you play 89% of the snaps, it's going to work out for you most times. So they're still 31st in projected points like they were last week when they were like actually dead last in that. It's not going to be a fun matchup against the Rams guys. But the Rams do play a little bit lighter in the box, like on purpose. They kind of like invite the run a little bit, and the Titans were 7th in neutral run rate this past week. So I think it's very similar to the Chuba stuff. Like I think this offense wants to give Tony Pollard the ball a bunch, and he doesn't come off the field. So like that's a start to me. Like I think this is like a pretty sick tier. Like you want 2 or probably 3 of these backs by like the time we get to RB20, and those are the teams that are projected to win week 2.
Here's a stat from Reeves's worksheet. The Rams have now allowed single-digit points in 5 of their past 7 games played going back into last year. So again, this Titans offense drawing difficult ones in the first 2 games of the season.
Yes.
Okay, Travis Etienne is here as your running back 19. This is at the Cincinnati Bengals. He's, and maybe you can say only, at 72.5 yards projected in the pick'em lobby total. We know that they trade away Tank Bigsby. I expect Bashal Tootin to maybe get a couple more touches, but this is the best matchup that Travis Etienne has for the next 4 or 5 weeks and should be in a quote unquote smash spot from that perspective.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bengals 28th in rushing EPA and 29th in rushing success rate since 2024 kicked off. And last week they did a good job against the Browns, but Dylan Sampson still, caught 8 passes, and I thought made a bunch of defenders miss. Like we know the Bengals defense is going to be bad, so that's going to be good for Travis Etienne. Basil Tutin's going to play a little bit more, but Tank Bigsby did play some in the fourth quarter. It was mostly Travis Etienne in the first half of the ball game, and he looks really good. And Liam Cohen has talked up Travis Etienne a ton, so I think just turning over the cards to Basil Tutin, I feel like that's going to have to be proven out over weeks and weeks and weeks. So for now, Etienne.
Javonte Williams is your running back 20. Dallas Cowboys face off against the New York Football Giants. Cowboys have won 13 games in a row against the Giants when Dak Prescott is their starting quarterback. Dak Prescott is their starting quarterback in this game. And if they win games, that means they score more points than their opponents. And as we know, Javonte Williams got 2 goal line touchdowns last week.
Yeah, he was the RB10 in usage, and he finished even higher than that because he converted his goal line opportunities into scores. He played 77% of the snaps. Where did the other snaps go to? Miles Sanders, who was horrific. And then Jaden Blue was a healthy scratch and for preparation and special teams reasons. So until that changes, it's Javonte Williams, who I thought looked a little bit better on tape. Ran through a couple guys versus last year where he didn't have enough juice to do that. So I'm riding this one until the wheels come off. He looks like an absolute must start, and the Cowboys are 7th in projected points. So I know the Giants have some real dudes up front, but this is too big to fail for right now.
Home favorites expected to score 25 points. If you drafted Javonte Williams, this is probably one of those times that you put him in your flex spot and you roll with it because the games don't, project better points for him than this one ever.
Yeah. Ever. Great spot.
Alvin Kamara, running back 21 against the San Francisco 49ers. I do have a slight issue with maybe PPR scam Alvin Kamara is gone. Do you have the same issues?
I had the same notes. I mean, it's one week sample size here, but Jacob made sure to point this out in one of the shows that we did or on Twitter. I forget what it was. He had 2 targets. The problem was the Saints dropped back a million times. So that equated to a 4% target share. Alvin Kamara has been 15, 20, 25% target share forever. And if they're going to dink and dunk with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson, that comes at the expense at the running back. So yeah, we'll see. And then for this week, just with Alvin Kamara, you get Fred Warner and the boys. And I think the 49ers are going to be really run heavy on the other side because they have Mac Jones. And this clock's just going to bleed. And they did a really good job against Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet last week. So he was out there for 79% of the snaps, but I'm guessing your notes were he's going to be out there a ton, but more carries, less PPR scam stuff. And that's a bad sign.
They are projected for the 5th fewest points. So not the 2nd fewest points this week, which is nice.
Trending up. I thought the offense the Saints looked well coached and just it seemed like they behaved. They're lacking talent, but they seemed like it was at least somewhat watchable.
Okay, your next name, Hayden. I always love to do your rankings versus consensus rankings. You have Jordan Mason as running back 22 against the Atlanta Falcons. He is running back 32 in consensus rankings. This stat from the great Alec Lewis, who's a beat writer for The Athletic, quote, Jordan Mason averaged 3.86 yards after contact last night per True Media. That's the highest a running back has posted in a game for the Vikings since Kevin O'Connell took over as the head coach. So exactly their plan of adding him plus to the interior offensive line played out in week 1, and it led to a win.
And those numbers were really good in that metric last year too, which is why the Vikings wanted to trade for him. So, he just got a ton of run from the second quarter on. It just immediately became the Jordan Mason show. And this was kind of the theory with Jordan Mason. And especially if these are half PPR rankings, this is a great spot. And we got exactly the results that we were looking for in week 1, where obviously, Aaron Jones had the touchdown, but it was a design touch. But the carries, and I think the goal line carries, are going to go to Jordan Mason. And the Vikings right now, they had a 41% neutral pass rate in the opener, which is 15 percentage points lower than where it's been with Kevin O'Connell historically, and which is what we predicted with the new offensive line. And the Falcons' run defense is not good, and they're at home. They're 3.5-point favorites. They're projected for the 10th most points on the week. So Jordan Mason's pretty high up there in expected touchdowns this week. So I think he's a start. I think I want to be aggressive with Jordan Mason. I see where this one's going. They're going to use him a lot more. He was the beneficiary to all of the interior offensive line upgrades.
Agree with all of that. That brings us to DeAndre Swift as running back 23 at the Detroit Lions. A revenge game of sorts here for DeAndre. Talk about usage. The highest share of team running back touches in week 1 with 95.2%. I will add that Ben Johnson was asked today about how he gets Kyle Monangai more touches. He says you have to run the football more often and he'll get more because of that. Detroit, very good at stopping the run, allowed 0.52 yards before contact on those rushes in week 1.
Yeah, they load up the box and they have dudes in the box. So like the Lions historically been excellent against fantasy running backs. DeAndre Swift's success rate was pathetic. I think it was like 14% on the ground. So I don't know if it's going to be Kyle Monangai now or it's going to be Roschon Johnson perhaps coming back from injury. But like to me, the Bears have got to find somebody else to get the ball to on the ground. But I don't know who that's going to be. So for now, I'm just kind of rocking with what we saw last week, which was RB15 in usage. Like he's still due for an explosive play every now and again. So like even though we could be frustrated with the success rate, I think eventually he's going to scale back his workload. Like for now, I think we got to treat week 1 like it was like a real thing, even though like the flaws were very evident.
David Montgomery, the opposite end of this, is your running back 24. If Jahmyr Gibbs didn't get anything going in week 1, Dave Montgomery wasn't. Again, we talk about projected points every single week. Much better at 26.5 versus 22. That is almost a touchdown extra for Dave Montgomery to potentially score a touchdown in a game this week.
And even last week, he was still involved. Like he didn't get iced early in the game. Like he still finished with the RB25 in usage, like expected points wise. And it was like kind of an even split with Jahmyr Gibbs until Jahmyr Gibbs was catching all those passes like really late. So this should not be like a trailing situation. They're projected for the 3rd most points. And I did look back last year in the last game that Montgomery played against the Bears. Jahmyr Gibbs was active for that one. It was a close game. It was like 23-20. And in that game, David Montgomery handled 21 of the 30 running back carries. Like it was like a David Montgomery right up the middle. There's a new defensive coordinator. Maybe that doesn't kind of stick here, but at least early in last week's game, they were running the ball at the highest rate in neutral situations, and David Montgomery was part of that. So if things just look better on offense, like I don't want to write off David Montgomery in week 2.
Speaking of not writing off, many people have. We'll see if he can write back. This is Ken Walker III stands here as running back 25. 2 points. One, I went into this wondering if you would just outright rank Zach Charbonnet ahead of Ken Walker. And 2, I do notice this is right on the first number that technically is the first spot as a flex, which is very interesting to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is like putting a little bit of faith into just things evening out. When I went back and looked at the Seahawks offense, it was kind of drive by drive. And the Zach Charbonnet goal line opportunity just happened to be on the drive that Zach Charbonnet was playing the most on. It's not like Zach Charbonnet is like being subbed in at the goal line at the expense of Kenneth Walker, who we know can score touchdowns. Now, maybe that ends up being the case. But if it is just kind of like drive by drive, like who's to say that Kenneth Walker doesn't get the touchdown drives in this one as well? I will say Zach Charbonnet did play the 2-minute drill, and I think that was a choice. So we're going to have to work against that with Kenneth Walker. And this week is just a terrible spot. I mean, they're 30th in projected points. They're projected for 18.5 points right here. So I think they're like begging for Kenneth Walker to create explosive. I think he's capable of doing that. They are at least running the ball in neutral situations, and Kenneth Walker was the starter. So I don't think that the usage can be quite as Charbonnet sided as it was in week 1. Now, I think it's just kind of a function of like the Charbonnet drives were just like lasting longer than the Kenneth Walker ones.
Number 1 is we need the Seahawks offensive line to just block better. Even the 1.5 or the whatever the number was, it was at 1.5. Anyways, it was very low that Zach Charbonnet got before contact. And he was even worse for Ken Walker in week 1. We just need that to improve. And then both, box scores will improve. And then once that does improve, we should get more clarity as more games happen of what the true split is. Like you said, it was mostly 50-50. And even inside the 10-yard line, Zach Charbonnet played 3 snaps inside the 10 and Ken Walker played 2. He played fewer passing down snaps, but he also caught, 3 passes or whatever it was. So again, more information gathering as we go along. I know I haven't written off Ken Walker's season. despite, I think, the fantasy community having so far. It's a very, very long one for us.
Definitely so. Yeah. Once again, though, it could be bad this week because the Seahawks are projected to score 18.5 points.
Now, with that said, though, like the Jets ran all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is in Pittsburgh, so we'll see. Maybe they can make good on the preseason performances that we saw from that unit. J.K. Dobbins is your running back 26. This is at the Indianapolis Colts, who were not pressed at all last week.
No, not at all. I thought Lou Anarumo did a good job in his first game as the defensive coordinator there. The Broncos, their team total's down a little bit at 22.25 points versus where it was last week hosting the Titans. The split was kind of what I was anticipating. J.K. Dobbins played the most, but only 53% of the snaps. He's the heaviest running back, which I think is going to ultimately mean he's going to get the first cracks at the goal line eventually. The kind of wrinkle that I was not expecting, which is bad news for both of the guys, is Tyler Bidet was out there for the 2-minute drill and was kind of subbing in some critical moments on passing situations, which like at the same time, like not that surprising because Sean Payton always uses like an unnamed third running back, but it does come at the expense of both these guys. The Pick'em lobby likes J.K. Dobbins, but doesn't love him. So I think these guys are like on the flex radar. The matchup is more mediocre than it was last week when they were expected to score a bunch of points and then kind of fluttered.
Yeah, Pick'em lobby has him at 63 total yards right now. Aaron Jones is up next as your running back 27. This is at, or against, I should say, the Atlanta Falcons. We already talked about Jordan Mason. So what does that mean for AJ?
Expected half PPR points wise last week, RB 41. If you're not getting goal line carries and Jordan Mason is getting a lot more carries, then you have to be very, very efficient to pay off. The good news is Aaron Jones has done that his entire career. Kevin O'Connell's done that since he's been calling plays. The Vikings are top 10 in points. So I'm expecting him to do better than what my model is telling me. But the usage, right now, he is a committee member without a goal line role. That's what I would call Aaron Jones. Now, he's a very good one at that and behind a good offensive line, so he's going to make up for it. But it's not awesome, his week one usage. It was kind of scary. But I also don't trust the Falcons defense whatsoever.
So basically, with that role, he either needs to catch a number of passes and or have an explosive play and or score a touchdown. Yes.
And I think that he's going to probably do that more times than not, but he also has to pay off his ADP. If he's not doing that at the same rates as he's been doing it for his entire career, then it's not looking good.
Jaylen Warren is next as your running back 28. I think one takeaway that people might have had after looking at his box score was that he was the no doubt lead running back for this team. And I would push back on that. Kenny Gainwell played a ton. It was almost an identical 50-50 split. And Jaylen Warren, while he definitely played more in Arthur Smith offense than he ever has before, Arthur Smith is never just going to lean on one dude as well. Again, Gainwell led the backfield with 27 snaps, only managed 23 yards on those 10 touches. Warren played 25 snaps, but was much, much more productive on his 13 touches.
Yeah, once the second quarter came around, it became a little bit more Jaylen Warren. So I wonder if that's by choice, if they just kind of felt that they trusted him or if they saw enough from Kenny Gainwell. But he handled both of the goal line opportunities. He was out there for the 2-minute drill. He seems to be trusted by Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. That's veteran incumbent stuff, and he can be out there in pass protection. So I think I'm just going to ride this one out until Caleb Williams or Caleb Johnson gets out there or Kenny Gainwell plays a lot more. I thought the offense was structurally competent last week. Obviously they had scored a bunch of points, but it felt sustainable.
Totally.
So I think he's going to be a starter in the flex spot. But like you said, he's never been a bell cow back. I would be pretty surprised if he ever turns into that this season. So I think that he's kind of capped as this RB3 plus. But for now, that's a win.
At the same time, Arthur Smith does some awesome stuff with the running game,
Yes, he does.
Jaylen Warren can be a big beneficiary of that. You are directly in line with consensus rankings on Bill Croskey-Merritt at running back 29. Again, this is at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. Washington in week 1 led the NFL with 19 plays of 10 or more yards, according to Rich Rebar. But Green Bay on the opposite end, their defense allowed a first down or touchdown on just 9% of runs they faced in week 1, the lowest rate in the league. So something has to give here, Hayden.
Yeah, or it just ends up right in the middle, which is where the betting markets have Washington's team total at 22.5 points, which is like a lot lower than it is going to be for the rest of the season. So this Bill ranking at 29, I did sneak him into the 20s like I promised, but this is like the bad matchup for him. And I think over time, he's just going to eat more and more into Austin Ekeler's usage. Like you're looking at it like the chart of how the game progressed. It was all Austin Ekeler in the first quarter. And then from the first quarter and afterwards, it was 41% of the snaps, 43% of the carries, and then he ultimately finished RB30 in usage. He was highly successful. We talked about in stats versus film, like his patience is a requirement in this like very complicated rushing scheme, and he has it. He has the explosiveness. So I see where this one's going. It's just like a little bit of a pause in expectations against the Packers because he looks so good.
He led the NFL in terms of yards blocked for him before contact per attempt with 4 in week 1. But part of that was definitely the vision and the elusiveness that he brings to the table. So it's not just the offensive line on top. But again, he made great work of the 19 snaps that he had, the 10 touches that he had on just 19 snaps for 82 yards and a score, because that was running back 34 in terms of percent of backfield touches in week 1. And you already have him as running back 29. Because I agree, like if that was just his debut, no doubt in my mind, the 19 snaps increases, the 10 touches can improve to 14 to 15. And while that might not mean 82 yards and a touchdown, at the very least, the projectable volume should go up.
Yes. And then you're always going to be working against Jaden Daniels and Debo inside the red area too. So I think there's like ultimately a kind of a cap of where this thing can go, but like he's on pace to like live up to the 10th round price tag that you most likely paid on him. And in best ball, if you were drafting this dude in the 18th round, it's like the smash pick. So I think he's going to be pretty efficient moving forward.
Tyrone Tracy is your running back 30. This is at the Dallas Cowboys. Tracy played 4 snaps inside the 10-yard line in week 1. Cam Scatteraboo and Devin Singletary played 2 snaps apiece, and he controlled the passing game, ran a route on 67% of his team's dropbacks. So we're going to see if Tyrone Tracy, well, first we got to see if the Giants can actually put a touchdown or points on the board. That is questionable. But on top of that, how long does this Tyrone Tracy like hold on the position last? Because it could for much longer than I think many people anticipated.
Yeah, we'll see. He played 74% of the snaps. That didn't mean anything because, you know, the Giants couldn't move the ball. And once they got into the red area, they like didn't even like, it was not even a part of their thought process that they're going to run the ball. Like they just like completely gave up. And I totally understand that. So we'll see. Like even if he's out there, they might not even give him the ball. So I thought Cam Scatteraboo played well. He was a complete chaos back as he was at Arizona State. So I think over time he's going to eat into Tyrone Tracy's usage. But like to me, this is all for naught until Andrew Thomas gets back out there. And he didn't practice on Wednesday. They said the plan is for him to be out there in some capacity on Thursday and Friday before making a decision. It seemed kind of crazy to me if like he went like the entire offseason and then missed week 1, but he's out there for week 2. Like he just missed the opener. I don't know. It's making me a little bit nervous. And Russell Wilson on top of that's like super boom bust where like it's like punt or it was a 60-yard pass and it was completed. So it kind of works against the running backs in general.
You are much lower than the public on TreVeyon Henderson. He is your running back 31 against the Miami Dolphins. He's running back 22 in consensus rankings. Last week, 11 touches for 51 total yards. This week, and it's why he brings up my trio in the Pick'em lobby, his lower is only at 51.5 total yards. So you're basically asking him to do exactly what he did last week against a Miami Dolphins defense that got absolutely shredded last week.
Yeah, the issues with TreVeyon Henderson right now is he played 35% of the snaps. Now, when he's out there, they're going to give him the ball. Like, there's no disputing that. He was a running back 25 in usage last week while getting 6 targets. Like, maybe he just gets 6 targets every single week, but if that's 4 targets, like, that's not going to be enough. I did notice he did lose the 2-minute drill largely to Ramondre. He played a couple of the snaps, but every single time they started the 2-minute drill, which they had that going into halftime and at the end of the game, it was Ramondre Stevenson out there. And I do think that at the goal line, it's most likely going to be Ramondre just because of size. So I like to see like more 2-minute drills work from TreVeyon. I would like to see him get, more than 5 carries in this one. So I think long-term, it's going to look better than this. It is a good matchup in the secondary. If they can spring him out wide, I don't trust the linebackers and corners and safeties to tackle TreVeyon. But the defensive line, I would say, is a mismatch for the Patriots offensive line here. So I think there's like pros and cons to this one. I think everybody's just kind of guessing at where this one ends up.
My guesstimation is that Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel sat down and watched the tape and said, okay, the most explosive player on our offense is TreVeyon Henderson. We have to figure out a way for him to actually stride out and,
have trying
open space to him. No, they
gave him screens and they threw swing routes and stuff to him, 6 targets. Like,
I agree, but you can do even more and you can funnel even more touches in his direction. Like instead of Ramondre Stevenson, instead of Antonio Gibson out there on the field, instead of throwing it to Pop Douglas or whoever the hell else is out there. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we see a jump in just usage overall for TreVeyon Henderson in week 2, because they kind of have to do it in order to get this offense going, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's where this thing ends up. It just, does it happen in week 2 or week 4? I don't know.
Dylan Sampson is your running back 32. This is against the Baltimore Ravens. You're a few spots ahead of consensus, who have him as running back 36. Talk about it.
I don't know if Quinshon Judkins is going to play or not, so come back for the show on Sunday. He might get suspended for this week. He might be cleared from the NFL investigation entirely. We don't know.
He did not practice on Wednesday because he was meeting with the NFL on Wednesday.
Yes. And they say like the plan might be for him to practice on Thursday and Friday. So I don't know. So this is a complete placeholder. I love Dylan Sampson's tape. I thought he was excellent in the receiving game. I thought his vision and stuff in college was really good. He was a 20-year-old early declare, super productive. I like what I'm seeing from Dylan Sampson. You are also dead last in projected points for the Cleveland Browns against the fucking Ravens. So like, what am I supposed to do here? Like all those swing routes that he was breaking tackles last week, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey are now out there in space. So I don't know what to do here. Like, I like what I'm seeing, but is this the week to like use that to our advantage? I don't know.
I mean, he had 8 catches on just 15 routes this past week. Yeah. Jerome Ford had 25. Now, again, just talking like with Hendo, that can totally change based on what Dylan Sampson put out there on the field. He might run, though, 35 routes and catch 6 passes instead of the 8 on 15. But, you're attached to Joe Flacco. He's going to use his check down and all that type of stuff. But being, according to Reeves, running back 38 in route participation, but 3rd in targets, like that doesn't equal out.
No. Yeah, no, completely agree. Like everything about this feels wonky. I just know I liked what I saw. But I don't know if I can do anything like in the pick'em lobby or starting him in fantasy. Actually, if you draft him in Dynasty, or you're just like a NFL draft junkie, I feel like you're like, ooh, this is looking good. But for week 2 rankings, I don't know.
With the trade show, which by the way, you can watch on Thursdays on this channel, prior to last week, I noted that actually after the first 2 weeks of the season, you might want to trade Dylan Sampson because the schedule gets like incredibly difficult after this. And keep that in mind after this week. We'll talk about it on this week's trade show as well. Ramondre Stevenson is your running back 33. We kind of just already discussed him. So let's bring it on over to your running back 34. That is Nick Chubb against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nick Chubb actually, Hayden, had the 4th highest yards before contact per attempt in week 1. So the Houston Texans pass blocking offensive line, not great, but they created, some space for him to run a little bit out there last weekend.
And didn't really matter. He's just not going to catch passes. And we'll see about the Texans offensive line. Like they lost their center to a high ankle sprain. Their left tackle, I think, is going to be out as well. It's like basically a tryout everywhere, receiver and across the offensive line. They've lost now their tight end 2 and tight end 3 as well. So they're calling up guys that are like on their practice squad to like get out there and block for Nick Chubb. And then, it's Vita Vea and the boys. So like, he's out there. That's for sure. Does it matter? I'm not sure if it does.
Zach Charbonnet is next for you. Anything you want to add to Charbs that we didn't touch on here with Ken Walker?
He's going to be out there for the 2-minute drill, but like they're 30th in projected points. You don't get the 2-minute drill every single time. And if it's the Kenneth Walker drive that ends in a touchdown, Zach Charbonnet is still a handcuff. So like, I still view him as more of a handcuff than a play.
Austin Ekeler, RJ Harvey. That's your, I think, running back 35 and 36. Any additions there?
No, not really. RJ Harvey is RB 47 in usage. He made the most out of it. That's going to continue to grow, but it's still 3-back committee, and we can't afford that if the
It could immediately in week 2 though be like a 2-person backfield, like, and that would help J.K. Dobbins too, because that would get rid of some of the passing down stuff that Tyler Bidet got, and then that would mean RJ Harvey gets even more early down work on top of it.
Yeah, if Bo Nix plays like how he did last week, like 2 backs, 3 backs, 1 back, it's not going to be good enough.
Well, this is the first Chiefs back that we've talked about. and this is as your running back 38, I believe. So talk to me about Isiah Pacheco against the Philadelphia Eagles, because he's just at 47 total yards in the pick 'em lobby right now.
I mean, it's the Eagles, so that's not good. And he played 0 of 5 short yardage situations, and Kareem Hunt handled 12 of 14 third and long situations. So like, that's where you get your fantasy points. And even when you are at the goal line back for the Chiefs, it does not mean you're getting touchdowns, because this team does all the BS Kelsey flips, and here comes the running back that you never heard of, and here comes the wide receiver 3. Like, it's just a mess. Like, are we confident that the Chiefs are going to go crazy on the Eagles? Like, how good does Mahomes have to be for this team to even look competent this week?
And look, I know it's a difficult matchup, and so that plays a part in this. I think Pacheco is kind of the biggest loser among all running backs in week 1. That could change, maybe they phase out Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith. Maybe he doesn't expand his role. So it could change, because Isiah Pacheco didn't look bad as an individual. They just went into that game. Literally in the first series, one guy got first down, one guy got second down, one guy got third down. Like, that is a tell if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, he might end up being like a buy low in like 2-3 weeks. Like, let this thing kind of bottom out, and then like hopefully when Rashee Rice gets back, the offense looks better, and then Pacheco just like earns more playing time by just his tape.
Okay, we close things out with Braylon Allen, who got a short yardage rushing score from the 8, and then Bashal Tutin here. I'm excited to see what Bashal Tutin, how much they get him involved after this trade of Tank Bigsby, because this has been in the works for a little bit. If you read John Shipley and Pete Prisco and all these guys, and so he didn't have many opportunities last week, but if he gets up to like 8 or 10 here in week 2, that's real nice.
For a deep league, it would be nice. I think he's going to be 25-ish% of the snaps, and that will just like go up a little bit if he earns it, and if Etienne kind of falls out. So he's a high-end bench stash who could overcome it eventually, and I'm not expecting that much in the second week.
All right, that does it. Again, Thursday, trade show with Faraz. Then Friday, wide receiver rankings. Saturday, quarterback and tight end. And you're starting both the quarterbacks in Jordan Love and Jaden Daniels this week too. That does it for us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. If you want more in-depth stuff with film breakdowns, obviously we have Stats versus Film every single week, where we cover every single team. That's the flagship show. It's already in the channel. Up the Villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.